Good afternoon. Welcome to the Nexus of Communication 101 Basics for Accreditation Liaison Officers. We want to remind you that this presentation remains the property of the Commission. And if you have specific questions related to your institution, you should reach out to your VP liaison. This presentation is being recorded, and we will be sharing this recording with all of you and those who registered but were unable to attend today. Before we begin, we would like to take a moment to recognize the sponsor of today's webinar, the Association of College and University Educators. The Association of College and University Educators, the nation's leader in student success and equity through quality instruction, prepares and credentials faculty in the evidence-based teaching practices shown to increase student retention, deepen learning, and close equity gaps. In addition to supporting today's webinar, the Association of College and University Educators will join us as a platinum sponsor at the 2022 MSCHE Annual Conference this December 7th through 9th in Philadelphia. Thank you, ACUE. Today's presenters are Dr. Edna Corbett, Dr. Stephen Pugliese, and me. I've been with the Commission for about 11 years in the role of Assistant Director for Institutional Support Services. In this role, I've gotten a chance to meet many of you and work with you in your role as Accreditation Liaison Officers. I now invite Dr. Corbett and Dr. Pugliese to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Edna Corbett. I'm Lead Vice President for Institutional Peer Relations, and I have been with the Commission for about 5 years. And during the first 4.5, I was privileged enough to be the VP liaison for more than 80 institutions. Welcome.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Pugliese. I am the Senior Vice President and Chief of Staff, and I too have been with the Commission for a little over 5 years. Prior to my current role, I actually served as a Vice President Liaison and Lead Vice President, serving similar to Dr. Corbett with institutions. But I think one of the things that I would also say is prior to joining the Commission, I also held the role of the Accreditation Liaison Officer, as I know Dr. Corbett did with my institution before joining the Commission. So we bring both the experience of the Commission as well as our experience from an institutional perspective to this, and welcome.
Thank you both. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge our events team and MSCHE staff working behind the scenes to help us manage this webinar. To facilitate receiving questions, we will use the Q&A option provided in the participant panel. Remember that while we can address general matters, you can discreetly discuss specifics of any issue your institution is experiencing by reaching out directly to your assigned VP liaison. We will hold questions until the end of the presentation today and respond to those posed in the Q&A. Today, we intend to address the following. We will provide an MSCHE overview for those of you who are new to the Commission. We will discuss the responsibilities of the ALO. We will talk about recent changes in policies, procedures, and guidelines. We're going to discuss recent updates to federal regulations and their impacts on you and your institutions. We're going to give a little review of AIU process, particularly since the AIU is open at this point. We're going to provide resources and remind you of where to find important information, both in our website and in other sources. And a preview of upcoming events. And finally, we're going to do the question and answer period. We hope that in advance of this webinar, you viewed the webinar that was offered in October of 2021 and is currently available on the MSCHE YouTube channel. This webinar was intended for new ALOs and provides an in-depth look at the role and responsibilities of the position from the MSCHE perspective. Today, however, we will primarily focus on changes and updates to the basic information that was provided in that previous webinar. We hope that at the end of today's program, we will have helped you to gain a better understanding of your role as the ALO and the expectations of the Commission for you as an ALO representing your institution. We also want to provide you with resources and updates that will assist you in that role. And finally, we will give, as I said, ample opportunity for you to ask us questions. Now, a little bit about the MSCHE staff. Behind the scenes, the Commission staff is comprised of about 34 staff members who handle the day-to-day activities for the Commission. You may need to interact with various staff members as individuals or contact units such as support@MSCHE when you forget your portal password, or events@msche.org when registering for an event or needing a receipt, or even contacting finance at MSCHE when working on issues related to an invoice. You will find that all of the colleagues on the Commission staff are friendly, accessible, and helpful. But your most obvious and critical connection to the Commission is through your Vice President Liaison, noted here as Institution Field Relations. We have a wonderful group of Commission staff liaisons working with institutions at this year's Self-Study Institute and throughout all of the events and at various other points during the year. The Vice Presidents for Institutional Field Relations are Dr. Robert Bonfiglio, Dr. Sean McKittrick, Dr. Paul Starkey, Dr. Melissa Harden, Dr. Kushnud Haq, Dr. Terrence Peavy, and our newest member, Dr. Ann Wall. I don't want to, of course, forget our lead Vice President, Dr. Edna Corbett. So a bit about the role and responsibilities of an ALO. Section 2F of the Commission's communication in the accreditation process procedures states the following. The institution's CEO or president will appoint an Accreditation Liaison Officer, heretofore known as the ALO, to serve as the primary point of contact with Commission staff and as a resource to the institution on accreditation issues in accordance with the Mid-Atlantic Region Commission on Higher Education bylaws. The Commission expects the institution to abide by the Accreditation Liaison Officer roles and responsibilities. The individual appointed should meet the following criteria: a resource to the institution on accreditation matters, someone with the time, knowledge, and authority to engage with the president and others on campus on accreditation matters, but not the president and not a consultant. In other words, our expectation is that you have been given the authority and will engage with the Commission on behalf of your institution through the appropriate means and that you will be able to engage with your president and senior leadership at your institution regularly regarding MSCHE accreditation matters concerning your institution. As noted in the ALO Role and Responsibilities Guidelines, MSCHE relies on the ALO to maintain lines of communication regarding accreditation matters and to report and maintain accurate information about the institution and key contacts in the MSCHE portal. Item 7 in Section 4A of the ALO Role and Responsibilities Guidelines says that the ALO is responsible for serving as a key resource person, coordinating the details of all accreditation-related visits by MSCHE staff and peer evaluators. For more information, review the self-study guide and follow-up reports and visits procedures. And hopefully, some of you may have also viewed the webinar from a couple of days ago regarding follow-up reports. So the ALO should review the institution's statement of accreditation status on a regular basis. This is found most easily on the MSCHE website in the institution directory. What you see here is our favorite and most used example, Adelphi University, which is first on the list. It is the ALO's responsibility to ensure that the information reflected is accurate and up to date. In addition, those needing formal verification of an institution's accreditation can always click on the Print SAS button in the upper right. The printed version of the SAS serves as an official statement of the institution's accreditation status, and in most cases can be used in lieu of requesting a letter or statement prepared by commission staff. The printed SAS includes a list of recent accreditation actions, alternative delivery methods, credential levels, and locations. And with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Corbett to discuss recent changes in policies, procedures, and guidelines. Dr. Corbett.
Thank you, Diana. So now let's talk about recent changes in the policies, procedures, and guidelines. Next. The MSCHE members institutions are expected to maintain compliance with Commission policies and procedures, and the most current policies, procedures, and guidelines are posted on the MSCHE website. So you should always visit our website for the most up-to-date version. In the policies, on the policies page of our website, the documents are organized by alphabetical order, but you can always use the search filter. Use the title, the keyword, the type of document, and then you will be able to find it easily. Previous. Now, there are many policies and procedures that are listed in the directory on the MSCHE website. So the list on the screen represents a sampling of the most pertinent to your work as the ALO. So you should make a regular practice to visit the MSCHE website often and read the email notifications and newsletters announcing the changes, the revisions, and really develop a working familiarity with the policies, procedures, and guidelines. Now, there are two types of policy documents that are revised every year, and I have highlighted them in the screen. One is the dues and fees policy and procedures, and the other one is the substantive change policy, procedures, and guidelines. That is probably one of the most used and one of the most accessed policy documents on our website. So the substantive change revision also implies revision of templates and evaluator forms. Therefore, Before submitting a substantive change request, you should download the most current template directly from the substantive change page on our website, rather than use an old one that you may have on your computer. Next, we'll talk about new policies and procedures that have been recently revised. So on the screen, you will see a list of recently approved new or revised policies and procedures. We have created training videos for the first 3. When you receive a copy of this presentation, you will also receive a link to the training videos. And if you cannot access them there, then you could email training@msche.org and we will make them available for you. Now, if your institution has a visit scheduled for this fall, and there are 8 institutions that will have a visit soon, it is very important that you review the first 2 videos because they contain information that is relevant for the verification of compliance you must complete for Standard 2, Criterion 8. Also, if your institution has a related entity, which may be a system, a corporate or foundation sponsor, or it is religiously affiliated or has any other type of related entity, please make sure that you access these documents on our website as well as the training video. You will probably want to make sure that your related entity representatives become familiar with this policy and procedures. Finally, the complex substantive change policy and procedures were recently updated as of August 1st of this year. So if your institution is considering this type of complex substantive change, you would want to attend the presentation and live Q&A that we're going to have next Monday, September 19th at 2 p.m. Well, we also have another webinar that is available for you to register. So if you are considering a substantive change for your institution, another webinar you may want to attend is the live Q&A for substantive change process. This session was developed specifically for institutions. We have another one for peer evaluators. And for more information, we strongly encourage you to register for the live webinar on substantive change that will be offered, as you can see on the screen, October 11th at 9:30. So go to the events page at the MSCHE website to register for this free event. Something that we have not normally talked about, but has become incredibly important, is for the ALOs to be able to regularly check this federal student aid website. This is probably not something that you were probably thinking you would check. That is mostly the financial aid people that would be looking at. But it is very, very important in your role as the ALO that you regularly check this federal student aid website to ensure that you're up to date on the new guidance regarding Title IV federal student aid programs. Some of these letters refer to issues that may impact institutional accreditation. Namely, there's a reason 1 about written arrangements that you definitely would want to see. And check you with your VP liaison if you have any questions about these. And so I would be totally remiss if I didn't emphasize yet again that communication with your vice president liaison is an essential tool for the ALO. If you're a new ALO, please check your statement of accreditation status to find out who is the VP liaison for your institution. Now, this past spring, as Diana mentioned, we hired a new and wonderful vice president, Dr. Ann Wall, which required that we make changes to institutional assignments. So you should have received an email notifying you of the change if the assignment was changed for your institution. Nevertheless, if you haven't contacted your VP recently, or you don't know who that is, please check your SIS to confirm who it is. Now let me pass the baton over to Steve Pugliese.
Thank you, Edna. So let's turn the focus for a little bit on the annual institutional update, which is near and dear to all ALO's hearts. So what is the annual institutional update? When is it and what is its purpose? So As you know, we recently held a live Q&A for all institutional representatives that could ask specific questions regarding the annual institutional update. And we appreciate your attendance in that, as well as forwarding the appropriate information. As you see here, it is very important that we understand how the institutions are performing. Section 602.19 of the federal regulations require all accreditors to do an annual kind of monitoring, as well as the self-study process. So each of you have that 8-year cycle, and then we have the annual cycle of monitoring. We look at the institution student achievement, viability and capacity, and financial health as part of that. For institutions that submit data to the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, also known as IPEDS, those fields will automatically be pre-populated. We do have institutions, however, that do not submit to IPEDS, and so therefore institutions have the ability to submit their own relevant data in accordance with policy and procedures. Next slide, please. So as you know, this is where you find the annual institutional update in the portal. The AIU tab is where you can also download and submit your AIU during the data collection. This is one of the aspects that we have created over the last several years as far as downloading, because we know that the ALO and or portal delegate are the key people doing the AIU, and we want them to be able to share that information electronically with those who may be assisting in the data collection, as well as then to incorporate that into the AIU response. Previously submitted information is also available within the portal. So if you are looking at your previous history, you can also look at that in the portal. Next slide, please. So here's a quick overview of the AIU. Who completes the AIU? For the most part, we know that the ALO has been the one completing the AIU, sometimes the portal delegate, and sometimes we understand that the ALO and the portal delegate are one in the same. The AIU should be completed, though, as a group. As you know, there are multiple factors that the AIU incorporate. So MSCHE staff will monitor the AIU data each year. Data reports from the AIU and other data processes are shared as part of the institution's monitoring. And then the aggregate data reports for the AIU are also incorporated into the future. The commission may request, if at all, there are concerns based upon the data that has been reviewed. The commission may request anything as far as an information report, or may indicate other areas. The report is, as I said, downloadable, which allows for distribution. This happens for every institution every year. We have been moving the date due to COVID, and at some point we will get back into a regular cycle for the AIU administration, probably in mid to late spring. Next slide goes to the resources. So I know that we've tried to put a lot of information in front of you today, but we have a lot of resources available to you at the commission. Here's another tip. Those in SSI may already be familiar with this, but I do want to point out that the SSI communications plan, whether you are in SSI or not, that there are great templates and suggestions there for you to communicate to your community at any time during some type of process in Module 3. So as you can see here, you have the 2022 periodic review of standards for accreditation and requirements of affiliation, the link to policies and procedures. We also have the substantive change resources, as well as the AIU resources. You can also address the MSCHE staff contact list, and we encourage you to look for upcoming events. Next slide. In the near future, we understand that you've been very responsive to us as we have been reviewing and assessing our standards for accreditation and requirements of affiliation. There will be a time for institution presidents to vote, and we encourage you as the ALO to ensure that your president will be made aware of this and that the vote is taken in total for the requirements. And we also encourage you to list, as Edna said earlier, to register for webinars. We have made the webinars free to all member institutions because we know that there's a lot of valuable information that we would like to share with you. Next slide. And as Diana said in the beginning, we encourage you to register for our annual conference. We are very hopeful that by the middle to next week, we will be able to open the annual conference registration website. This will be a live in-person annual conference, December 7th through 9th, back in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Downtown Marriott. And we really hope that you'll be able to join us. In particular for ALOs, we do have an ALO breakfast that will take place on day 2 of the annual conference. And I will turn it back to, as we close, we would like to again thank our sponsor, the Association of College and University Educators, for bringing us today's webinar. You can learn more by visiting the Association of College and University Educators booth in the exhibit hall at the 2022 MSCHE Annual Conference. And at this time, to facilitate receiving questions, we will use the Q&A option provided in the participant panel. Remember that while we can address general matters during this session, you can discreetly discuss the specifics with your VP liaison. We will pause midway and at the end of this presentation to respond to questions.
Steve,
So as
we
I
have
see
a question
here,
for you.
we do have a question. When will the presidents be voting on the standards? So that question, we will be sending out a timeline. We hope that the standards will be voted upon shortly after the annual conference, at which point we will be doing a session on the standards that Dr. Ellie Fogarty and others who have been working on the process will be sharing that particular timeline. We will also have a communication that will go out to the president in advance with the vote.
May I also say something about that? Thank you for raising that question. It is very important that you as the ALO communicate with your presidents, particularly about voting on commission policy and on the standards in particular, since that's coming up relatively soon. Your president, your institution's president is the only vote, is the only person who will be able to vote on that. And so it'll be very important for you to make sure that you connect with them and let them know that this vote is coming and that your voice should be heard as an institution in this very important process. So we hope that you will take the time to encourage your president that to place their vote.
Great. Thank you, Diana. We've had several questions come in regarding the AIU and specifically around updating certain fields as well as uploading documentation to the portal. We know that there are some institutions that need to have additional conversation, and we ask that you do outreach to research at. We are trying to work through the questions and comments that come in on a daily basis. There are also some times where we have to go back and verify the data loads that we have done through iPads and via iPads. And so we are working on those on an individual basis. If you have not received any type of confirmation within the 24 to 72 hours, I would ask that you please go into your sent items to research at and resend that back to us so that we are able to resurface that up to the top of the list. We've also had another question come in regarding the Carnegie classification. Each year annually, We do update the Carnegie classifications based upon what is in the Carnegie classification data download. This is not done until after the AIU is closed. Typically, we do this at the end of September, and then we do update that process. It is something that is done annually, and we do need to verify that the Carnegie classification is listed correctly on their website, as well as the data that we upload. So that will be taken care of during the next several weeks. So let me talk a little bit about the AIU and some of the additional questions. Each year, the commission is looking at various key indicators, as well as want to understand what are some trends across our institutional members. And so this year in particular, we've asked two different questions. One is around HCM, and the other is around program participation. And so in order to gauge what we need to do as we talk about educational opportunities for our members, as well as understanding where some of our institutions are, we always add additional questions to the AIU in order to give a better context for us as the commission to work with our member institutions, as well as to provide additional context when we are looking at particular institutions throughout their accreditation review cycle and monitoring.
I will answer the question is there any information about follow-up visits for institutions that had a virtual reaccreditation visit? So the commission action talks about a verification visit. We will begin to do those verification visits next semester, and you will be notified about the process, and the peer evaluators will also be provided with the appropriate templates and forms that they need to use. This would normally be a very brief verification visit. Basically, we are required to be on campus and see the physical area of the campus. And so peer evaluators will be conducting those. There's also a question about, will those of us currently going through self-study be affected by the changes under the new standards? So the on-campus visit is 2024, spring 2024. No, you will not be. The new standards will begin to be implemented with the institutions that will be attending Self-Study Institute in 2023 next year. So it will not be until the 2025-2026 visits that you will see an impact of the new standards. There is a question about you have not received the updated dues bills for this year. Those were sent last, in July, early July. So you should have received it. Those bills went to your CFO. So one of the things you would need to do is you would need to check on the portal who is listed as the Chief Financial Officer for your institution, because that is the person that received it. So check with them, and they should be checking also their junk mail. It might be that it is included there. But if after checking your the portal and checking with your CFO and checking the junk mail, still you do not find them, please email finance@msche.org and I'll be able to provide you with the bill.
And Ina, if I could, I would also like to add that we do know that there was a communication that went out to institutions that we were correcting some of the dues and fees billing structures. That went out from the finance unit. If the updated bills have not arrived, some of the new updated bills and invoices will arrive within the next 2 to 3 weeks as well.
Okay. So could you answer the question about adding the headcount for the other instructional sites?
Yes, so if there should be the ability for you to add a range, if there is not, and you are able to add the other instructional site without adding the head count, that is appropriate. If not, if it is not letting you, please do send a message to research@msche.org, and we will look into the rationale for why you, as the portal delegate or as a key contact, are not able to add that field into it. So as far as any discrepancies with data from year to year in the AIU, if there is a discrepancy in data, that is primarily an iPads related discrepancy. So we do not override the iPads data. We do, however, do an iPads refresh each year, and that we look at the data and it will be updated. However, we cannot update it physically. We need to wait until we get confirmation that iPads has updated the information based upon the institution reporting that to iPads. We do not automatically go in to do so until we get the confirmation from iPads that they have validated the data and it is indeed been corrected.
We have a question asking us to provide a link to the video on the changes on credit hour definition. We will include that link on the email that you will receive with a copy of the presentation. So you should be able to just click there and you will find the links to the 3 videos. There's another one. It says your institution is on a 2025-2026 visit. When will the Self-Study Institute occur? You will be invited to Self-Study Institute next year in fall of 2023.
So there is also a question regarding the midpoint peer review. Currently, the Middle States Commission on Higher Education is continuing to evaluate that in light of the recent events of the pandemic, as well as the differences with standards for accreditation and requirements of affiliation. We know that there will be updates around the MPPR given during the annual conference, as well as communications will be coming out around that. But for right now, the MPPR for 2023 has been delayed.
Question about, for clarity purposes, what is the difference between the USDE final program review determination and the MSCHE self-study? As you know, the accreditation is monitored by the triad, which is the U.S. Department of Education, the state agencies, and the accreditation agencies such as MSCHE. The USDE final program review determination is from the federal level. The U.S. Department of Education conducts that study, that review of your financial aid processes, procedures, policies, and so on. The MSCHE self-study is actually a study, a self-reflection process for the entire institution. We are an institutional accreditor, and so the institution engages in that reflection and analysis, starting with attendance to the Self-Study Institute, and then going through the process of self-study that culminates in the evaluation team visit, which now is expected to be on site. So you will produce a self-study report for the self-study process that is different from what the USDE final program determination is, which is related to federal financial aid. So, buddy, once a reminder, how do we know who the liaison, VP liaison is, Diana?
So the easiest way to find out who your VP liaison is to go to the website, the MSCHE website, to the institution directory and type in your institution. A page will show up that will list your institution, your institution's CEO, your institution's ALO, and your institution's vice president liaison. Another way to determine who is your vice president liaison is to go into the portal using your portal access and to look at that information on your portal. I also see a couple of questions here about how to alert your president when it's time to vote. There is a lot of information on the MSCHE website about the standards revision process. There's a page dedicated to that. And on that page, we are using that page to communicate with institutions about the timeline and the next steps in that process. And so I'm quite sure that when it's time to vote, there will be an announcement on that page saying that a call for vote has gone out to the president. And that is how you will know to look for that, as well as to tap your president on the shoulder and let them know to look for that so that they can place their vote.
I have another question asking about the timeline for when the vote on the new standards will occur. That is going to occur in early 2023. And when we send the information, and per policy, we would notify the ALO is usually copied on all notifications.
And Eden, there's another question about the NPPR 2022. That too has also been delayed by commission action.
And Steve, when will the annual conference registration open?
We are hoping that the annual conference registration will either open by the end of this week, if not by the end of next week. We are tweaking the final pieces of the website. As you know, we used Cvent last year for our annual conference. We are continuing to use Cvent and the attendee hub process. And so we're trying to make sure all of the mechanics work before we launch it back to our constituents to register.
All right, we have a follow-up question about the verification visits. Yes, if you conducted your entire self-study visit virtually, you will need to have a verification visit, which will be, as I said, a brief visit by a peer evaluator, which may or may not be somebody who was on your evaluation team. And those, as the action says, will occur as soon as practicable. So what we're hoping the soonest practicable will be in the spring semester, this coming spring semester.
So there are a couple questions that have come in around the AIU. So if your institution does not participate in Title IV funding, what we have suggested to institutions is to look at what you submitted for your verification of compliance during your last self-study review. So if you recall, there is a section under the verification of compliance that institutions must submit a variety of information and evidence. So we ask that you look at the definition in the verification of compliance and provide us with that information. If there are specific additional questions that you have, please do outreach to research at. So as far as if you have questions about the AIU, yes, we always ask, and as we've said throughout, the VP liaison does serve as a great resource for your institution. If the VP is unable to answer the questions about the AIU, they will then submit them to research at, or suggest that you also submit them to research at. There is a lot of collaboration between the vice presidents for institutional field relations as well as the research unit.
Mm-hmm. And Steve, about the question that if the institution does not receive Title IV funds, they do not have a program determination.
Correct. So it would be however they responded to the that piece of the verification of compliance in the self-study, they would just put that into the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And that is correct. in one of the iterations of our, there is a question about somebody did not upload the actual last final determination letter. When we were finalizing the AIU portal, it became very apparent that we were unable to attach the letter to that specific question. So that is why we changed the question from the first notification that the AIU was coming up. We changed it to just provide us with the year as well as a description. So we do not need the actual letter itself in the AIU.
Mhm. Did we answer the question about the institution that is listed as a Carnegie Community Engaged Campus? Is that reflected in the Carnegie classification?
I would have to verify what is in the new definitions for Carnegie. We will be running that report after the conclusion of the AIU. If there is some discrepancy between what is in Carnegie and what we have, we will work individually with the institution as well as the institution and Carnegie.
Mhm. Okay.
There was a question early on about other accreditors and the drop-down menu for other accreditors. We would have to check to see what that particular issue is between the Accrediting Council for Education and Nursing and the Accreditation Commission for Nursing and Education, because it may very well be a typo, but I don't know that at the moment. But what I would like to say about other accreditors that are listed in that dropdown is that they are recognized accreditors, accrediting agencies that are recognized by the United States Secretary of Education. And so that list changes whenever recognition changes for other accreditors. And so you may find that there are some discrepancies between who you think or who you know that you your institution holds accreditation with and agencies that are in that drop-down menu. So you can always check with your Vice President Liaison if you have questions about that as well.
So Diana, if I could ask you to go back to the resource slide again.
Absolutely.
Please. So I think it's just really important to stress that these are a variety of resources that the commission has available to ALOs and anybody at the institution, and that feel free to share these various resources with your colleagues on your campus, because we feel it's very important. And we do encourage you to attend many of our workshops. Even if you register to attend, we will be sending, as you heard earlier, there are times that people will not be able to attend. We do send out the recordings then to institutional representatives that have registered so that you would have that as a resource. And I am not seeing any other questions coming in at this time.
Huh?
One. So we no longer provide hard copies of any of our materials. We do provide them as PDFs on the website once all of our documentation is finalized. And then that is where we encourage institutions to share the website as well as to share the PDF with their colleagues. One thing that I will note though, is in particular with policies and procedures, is that there are times that your system will cache the old policy. So we really ask that you make sure that when you are downloading particular policies and procedures, that you are looking for the effective date and making sure that you have the most recent policy, procedure, and or template or form that you must fill out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do have one final reminder. If you have been invited to attend the Self-Study Institute this year, which will start in 3 weeks, please remember that the deadline for registration is next Friday. So the ALOs are the people responsible for registering the people, the 10 representatives from the institution. So if you haven't already done so, please make sure you do that by the end of next week.
And I'll just put in my final plug as we wrap up to continue to submit questions to research at if we can be of assistance for the AIU. We know that there will be at least 3 additional communications as friendly reminders to complete the AIU that do go to the president, the CAO, the CFO, and the ALO. So please be mindful to at least communicate with those individuals on your campus to let them know that we do friendly reminders as we get closer to the time. We just sent one out yesterday as a reminder. And as I responded to some people, you're in good company right now with a lot of your institutional representatives because as of the close of business yesterday, we only had 8 complete AIUs submitted. So we know that this is the time and we are pacing similar to how we've done it in the past. So it is not alarming to myself as the overseer of the AIU and the research unit. And we know that our institutions are very mindful and will get the information into us. It is just another way to provide reminders. And my last thing is as most of you have said, you're looking forward to the annual conference registration opening up. We too are looking forward to the annual conference and being able to see all of our colleagues in person in Philadelphia this year. So we look forward to seeing you, and hopefully you'll be able to participate in other webinars with us throughout the fall semester. And until then, we'll see you in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on December 7th through 9th.